In case you missed it, back in September, Netflix came out with a documentary called The Social Dilemma, which got a lot of people fired up about social media and how addictive it is and algorithms. I think it's a little fitting that they decided to release it onto a platform that pushes an algorithm onto its users, and then here I am talking about it on another platform that has a very strict algorithm as well. It feels almost as though as soon as the like button premiered onto Facebook, academic articles flooded in about how those serotonin hits was very similar to a drug high, and with that came with a lot of TV shows and films that dramatized how we're all slaves to being liked, both literally and social medially. Hi, I'm Stella, and welcome to Salicot Cinemas, where I talk about movies because I watch too many and have too many opinions about them. Today, I'm going to be talking about Black Mirror's Season 3 premiere, Nosedive, from 2016, and Ingrid Goes West from 2017. They're both critically acclaimed cautionary tales about the dangers of social media. I will be going over their thematic similarities and how they differ in aesthetic, and how I think one of them is about character development, while the other one is about character regression. So let's just dive right into it, shall we? And here's the obligatory spoiler warning for both of these works. Naturally, it's very hard and almost impossible nowadays to have a completely new story that doesn't have something that's already been done before. Personally, I find it really interesting when you can find two works that have very similar themes and then you compare and contrast how they differ. One might do it super effectively, the other one might not, or of course they both can fail at it. In this case, I think both Nosedive and Ingrid Goes West explore their worlds pretty effectively. Black Mirror is an anthology series created by Charlie Brooker that began on the British network called Channel 4, but was then bought by Netflix in 2015. It features a different aspect of technology every episode and explores how people interact with it. This is one of the more relatively optimistic episodes, and this one's like bittersweet at best. Nosedive is season 3's episode that is about Lacey, who is in a world where people rate their encounters with people out of 5. Their average score is actually their socioeconomic status and dictates what kind of neighborhoods the person lives in, what kind of cars they can rent, and even where they can work. Ingrid Goes West centers around a mentally unstable woman named Ingrid. She has the tendency to latch onto other people and lets whoever is closest to her consume her entire personality. Ingrid Goes West is a perfect double feature pair to Nosedive, even though Nosedive isn't actually a movie, but I'm sure it does count as a short film. Look, it's a Black Mirror. It's like when you're turning off your phone, the surface is black, but you see a reflection like a black mirror. There are some pretty glaringly obvious similarities, the first of which is that they both center around the dangers of being obsessed with social media. They also both have a very meta scene of the protagonist taking a really aesthetic and vibey picture of their food, but spit it out right after, making a bitter face since it doesn't actually taste that great. The first scene is even Ingrid, played by Aubrey Plaza, crashing into the wedding of her then fixation, Charlotte, and pepper sprays the poor bride.
Thanks for inviting me, you fucking cunt!
Which mirrors how Lacey, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, crashes Alice Eve's character named Naomi's wedding at the end of Nosedive. Also, I think it should be worth noting that Ezra, the husband of Elizabeth Olsen's character named Taylor, is played by Wyatt Russell, who is in Playtest, the Black Mirror episode that follows this one. Every story that follows the 3-act structure has an inciting incident in its first act, which is an event that launches the protagonist into the story. Both Nosedive and Ingrid Goes West involve the main character tagging their fixation on a social media post as an inciting incident. Lacey posts a nostalgic picture of a stuffed toy that Naomi helped her make as a kid, which then has Naomi call her to invite her to her wedding. Ingrid comments on an avocado toast picture on Taylor's Instagram, who then responds to said comment later on in the day. This sets the tone for how both stories are primarily about toxic and parasitic friendships between two women. In Nosedive, Naomi is framed to be this mean girl that only kept Lacey around because she thought she was so much better than her and it boosted her ego. In IGW, Taylor similarly only keeps Ingrid around because she likes how much Ingrid worships the ground she walks on. But also, Ingrid obsesses over every little thing that Taylor does. When she visits her house for the first time, she proceeds to take a photo of every bath product that Taylor uses. Both of these protagonist fixations take the precedence over everyone else in their lives. Lacey writes off everything that her brother says against Naomi, even though her brother clearly has her best interests at heart. Ingrid's landlord, turned boyfriend, named Dan, played by O'Shea Jackson Jr., tries to get through that Ingrid morphs into a completely different person around Taylor, but she just continues to manipulate him to get what she wants, which is usually his car to drive Taylor around. He's too good for this world, and he's too good for Ingrid, and he's the only good person in this whole movie. He's obsessed with Batman and turns everything into a Batman reference.
No Batman talk. What am I supposed to talk about? I don't know these people.
He's truly a man after my heart. What is very interesting to me with Nosedive in particular is seeing how the mise-en-scène work in tandem with the music and the acting performances in the first and in the last 5 minutes. Here, we see that Lacey is jogging into the shot. The coloring hue is very pink and works with the set design of a very manicured suburb. The camera is constantly moving with her. Even when Lacey is actually stationary while she stretches or looks into the mirror, the camera is still slightly fidgeting and dolling in closer to her. If you were to watch this while it's muted and don't look closely at Bryce Dallas Howard, it almost looks like it's a happy story. The music is more or less the same volume until it eventually fades out after about 6 minutes. It's very melancholy, and you can see that her smiles are pretty strained. This signals us, the audience, that something is wrong. She is also noticeably glued to her phone this entire time. Now, if you were to compare this to when Lacey is in this strange social media jail, almost everything is the opposite. The lighting is hard instead of soft. She's in a grungier set, her makeup is smudged. Instead of being in an open quarters area while jogging, she's in a small cell and stationary. The camera is still moving a little bit, but not nearly as much as in the beginning. Instead, it plays a lot more with the focus pulling, blurring in and out of movements. This forces the viewer to look at things like her hand, or the man across the hallway. What remains of the pink is the bridesmaid dress that Naomi had given to her, and she takes it off, and doesn't treat it with the same reverence that she did with all the other Naomi-related items. This is her symbolically shedding her ties with that bond. However, despite all this, we see her genuinely smiling and no longer needing to practice a suitable laugh. Rather, she is laughing freely, and the music is the same song from the opening sequence. The difference is that rather than fading out, the song gets progressively louder and is triumphant, not melancholy. There is also no phone or technology in sight. When I first watched Ingrid Goes West, I thought there were some queer undertones to how Ingrid felt about Taylor. Maybe it was just my small gay brain that was just reaching. But in my defense, the way Ingrid was so nervous to make a good impression on Taylor was similar to how in many rom-coms, one of the suitors gets flustered and practices how they will approach the person of their affections. They also have an insert of how their hands touch as they shake hands for the first time, but this was immediately quashed by how the movie made it so apparent that Ingrid was trying to be Taylor rather than be with her. This is reflected in Ingrid's clothes. The costume designer, Natalie O'Brien, did a fantastic job of displaying Ingrid's mental state through her wardrobe. We can see how Ingrid tries to blend in with whoever she's fixated on. When she crashes the wedding, her dress looks similar to the bridesmaids. When she's in the mental institution, she's wearing a plaid flannel similar to the girl that she's playing ping pong with. We are shown throughout the movie how she copies basically everything Taylor wears. She was always mimicking someone, but it's never quite right. When she moves into Joshua Tree and buys the house that Taylor had been eyeing all along, she was wearing the same outfit that she was donning when she and Taylor had first visited, and they seemingly got closer as friends. It was like she was clinging to that moment and trying to relive it. Like how they both have very similar inciting incidents, the protagonists have an argument with their fixations that launches them into how they proceed with their story's climaxes. Naomi calls Lacey to tell her that she's uninvited to the wedding and that she only wanted Lacey around to boost her numbers.
So it was just about numbers for you?
Oh, cut the shit. It was numbers for both of us. You wanted those primo votes. Don't deny it. I mean, it's not like you could get them on your own. Let's not kid ourselves.
This provokes Lacey to show up the wedding anyway for an iconic speech.
Cut his head off and stick it on my ass!
And in the same vein, Ingrid sneaks into the party that Taylor is holding so that she can charge her phone. Taylor catches her, and they have an argument about how Ingrid was never truly her friend because she was just stalking her. This propels Ingrid to attempt suicide and post it on Instagram. The musical cue that we get from Nosedive is that despite Lacey's surroundings, the music suggests that she is triumphant and happy. However, in contrast, while Ingrid is zeroing in on her phone, the music in the background is the same from the beginning, but with the voices of the people commenting on her suicide video. When this film first came out, I saw a couple of reviews saying that Ingrid had learned her lesson and that she was smiling because she learned that at her most authentic, people will like her the most. But I would argue that she'd just found a new low, and this was just another extreme where she could just exploit herself to get more likes. In Nosedive, we see Lacey using her phone less and less, except for when Naomi calls her every so often to demand where she is. The only way that you can tell that her ratings are going down is from the sound cue, and most importantly, when she is having that maniacal laugh at the end, she's ultimately smiling at another person, but there isn't a phone screen in sight. This is completely different from the top of the episode when she's glued to her cell phone even though she's jogging. Ingrid, on the other hand, surrounds herself with the framed post that Taylor had made of them in Joshua Tree. which notably is the full post, including the likes, not just the picture of them. The painting that she had bought from Ezra, and plays the song that she and Taylor were singing along together. When Ingrid discovers Taylor in the magazine in the beginning of the movie, she's in a bathtub framed by 2 candles beside her. This is then mirrored in how she tries to kill herself while surrounded by the same candles. Anyway, this is the last moment that Taylor is ever mentioned in the rest of the film. She's also using her phone until her last moments of life, or at least she planned it that way. The first words out of her mouth are, "Where's my phone?" when she wakes up in the hospital. Therefore, she's not really improved. I hope you enjoyed that deep dive into Nosedive and Ingrid Goes West. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite movie that fears technology and warns its audience about the dangers of it. I've been Salicot Cinemas, but while we're here and talking about it, why don't you go ahead and like and subscribe? And ring that bell if you don't want to miss my videos every Tuesday at 11 a.m. PST. Thanks for watching. Bye.